Bullies mocked a girl in a wheelchair, laughed, filmed, even kicked her chair. But just as she whispered, "I still matter," the ground began to shake. Engines, 11 bikers rolling in, chrome blazing, eyes locked on the bullies. And what happened next? No one in that park will ever forget. Are you ready to see why their laughter died in their throats? Welcome back, my beautiful family and friends. If you're hooked in and you're ready to enjoy this story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Because tomorrow, I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one. And you don't want to miss it. The morning sun painted golden stripes across Lily Martinez's bedroom wall, but she didn't notice. She was already calculating, counting the steps from her bed to her wheelchair, measuring the distance between safety and vulnerability, between home and the world that waited outside with sharpened teeth. 13 years old, and she'd become an expert in making herself small. Her wheelchair sat beside her bed like a faithful companion, its purple spokes catching the light. She'd chosen that color 2 years ago, back when she still believed that making something beautiful could somehow make people see past it. Back before she learned that some people only saw the chair, never the girl sitting in it. "Lily, honey, breakfast is ready." Her mother's voice drifted up the stairs, wrapped in forced cheerfulness that Lily recognized too well. She transferred from bed to chair with practiced efficiency, her arms strong from 2 years of bearing weight they were never meant to carry. The accident had been quick. A drunk driver, a shattered spine, a life divided into before and after. But the aftermath? That moved with the slow, grinding cruelty of tectonic plates shifting beneath her life. Downstairs, her mother, Rosa, moved around the kitchen with that particular kind of brightness that came from pretending yesterday hadn't happened, pretending she hadn't found Lily sobbing in her room after school, her backpack soaked from being thrown in a puddle, her homework destroyed, her dignity shredded like the notebook paper that had floated in muddy water. "I made your favorite, chocolate chip pancakes." Rosa set the plate down gently, her hand lingering on Lily's shoulder a moment too long. "Thanks, Mom." Lily forced a smile, pushing the food around her plate. Her stomach was already knotted with dread. Friday meant the community park afternoon program, a well-intentioned initiative to get kids outside after school. For most kids, it meant freedom. For Lily, it meant 2 hours of exposure, of trying to be invisible while sitting in a chair that announced her difference like a neon sign. "You don't have to go today," Rosa said quietly, reading her daughter's face the way only mothers can. "I can call and say you're not feeling well." The offer hung between them, tempting as a life raft. But Lily had learned something harder than acceptance in the past 2 years. She'd learned that running away only made the next confrontation worse. The bullies fed on fear like sharks on blood and water. "No, I'll go." Lily's voice was steadier than she felt. "Mrs. Patterson is teaching watercolor today. I want to learn." What she didn't say. "I want to prove I still exist. I want to prove I'm more than this chair. I want to matter." Rosa's eyes glistened, but she blinked quickly, nodding. "That's my brave girl." But Lily didn't feel brave. She felt like a rabbit returning to a field of foxes, hoping today they might be full. The community center sat at the edge of Riverside Park, a sprawling green space that stretched along the Clearwater River. On paper, it was idyllic, ancient oak trees providing shade, walking paths winding through flower gardens, a playground where children's laughter usually echoed like wind chimes. In reality, for Lily, it was a battlefield where the terrain offered no cover. She rolled through the entrance at 3:47 p.m., 13 minutes after the program started. Late enough that maybe they'd already be occupied, early enough that Mrs. Patterson wouldn't worry. The art supplies were set up on the outdoor tables, watercolors gleaming like jewels in the afternoon sun. A few younger kids were already painting, their concentration absolute, tongues poking out in focus. Lily felt a flutter of hope. Maybe today would be different. Maybe, well, look who decided to roll in. The hope died like a candle in a hurricane. Trevor Hancock stood near the basketball court with his usual crew, Madison Pierce, Kyle Foster, and Jenna Wells. They were all 15, 2 years older than Lily, but the real gap between them couldn't be measured in years. It was measured in power, in the casual cruelty that came from never having been broken. Trevor was tall, athletic, with the kind of confident swagger that came from a life where doors opened easily. His father owned 3 car dealerships in town. His mother sat on the school board. He'd learned early that consequences were for other people. "What's the matter, Wheels? Forget to charge your batteries?" Kyle snickered at his own joke, elbowing Madison. Lily's hands tightened on her wheels. "Keep moving. Don't engage. Get to the art table." "Aw, she's ignoring us," Jenna said, her voice dripping with mock hurt. "That's so rude. We're just being friendly." "There's nothing friendly about you," Lily thought, but kept her eyes forward. The art table was 20 feet away. 15. 10. "Hey, I'm talking to you." Trevor's hand shot out, gripping her wheelchair handle. The world stopped. This was the line they'd never crossed before, the physical line. They'd mocked, they'd whispered, they'd excluded and humiliated, but they'd never actually touched her chair, her legs, her freedom. "Let go." Lily's voice came out smaller than she intended, a mouse trying to roar. "Let go, please." Trevor mimicked her tone, twisting it into something pathetic. "What's the magic word, Wheels?" The other kids at the art table had stopped painting. Mrs. Patterson was inside the community center, probably getting more supplies. The playground was on the other side of the park. They were alone, or might as well be. The handful of witnesses were younger kids who'd learned that intervening meant becoming the next target. "I said let go." Lily tried to pull forward, but Trevor held firm, his sneaker now pressed against her footrest. "Make me." His smile was sharp as a blade. Madison laughed, pulling out her phone. "This is going to be great for TikTok. Girl throws tantrum at park. I bet it'll go viral." Something inside Lily cracked, not broke. She'd been broken before. This was different. This was the sound of something crystallizing, hardening, a decision being made in the deep places where courage lives alongside fear. "You want me to beg?" she said quietly. "You want me to cry? You want me to give you what you came here for?" Trevor's smile flickered, confused by her tone. "Because I won't." Lily's voice was steady now, even as her hands shook. "You can mock me, you can film me, you can try to make me feel small, but I'm still here. I still matter. And one day, Trevor, you're going to look back at this moment and realize that the only person you made small was yourself." For a heartbeat, something crossed Trevor's face. Shame, maybe, or the ghost of conscience. But then Kyle laughed, breaking the spell. "Oh, she's got speeches now. What's next? A motivational poster?" Trevor's face hardened. "You think you're better than us? You think this chair makes you special, makes you brave?" He kicked the footrest, jolting the wheelchair backward. "It just makes you pathetic." He kicked again, harder. The chair rolled back several feet. "What would you have done in this moment? Have you ever witnessed bullying and wished you'd intervened? Let me know in the comments below." Lily's breath came in sharp gasps. Tears burned behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here, not for them. "That's what I thought," Trevor said, stalking toward her. "You're all talk, Wheels, just like you're all wheels. Nothing else? Nothing that—" The rumble started low, like distant thunder or an earthquake building beneath the earth, a deep, thrumming vibration that seemed to make the air itself shiver. Everyone froze. The sound grew louder, not thunder, but engines, motorcycles, multiple motorcycles, their collective roar approaching like a storm front racing across the sky. Trevor's hand dropped from Lily's chair. He turned toward the park entrance, and for the first time since Lily had known him, she saw uncertainty flicker across his face. The rumble became a roar. And then they appeared. They came like a force of nature, 11 motorcycles rolling into the park's entrance in a tight formation that spoke of discipline and unity. Chrome gleamed in the afternoon sun, leather creaked, and the engine's collective thunder seemed to shake the very leaves from the oak trees. But it wasn't the machines that made Trevor take an instinctive step backward. It was the riders. They were nothing like the polished, sanitized image of bikers from commercials or weekend hobbyists. These were road warriors, men and women whose faces told stories of miles traveled and battles fought, both literal and metaphorical. Tattoos wound up arms like illustrated biographies. Leather vests bore patches that spoke of chapters, brotherhood, and a code outsiders couldn't read. The lead bike was a black and chrome beast, and its rider commanded attention without saying a word. He was massive, 6'4" at least, with shoulders that seemed to span the width of his handlebars. His beard was shot through with gray, and his eyes, visible through the tinted visor he pushed up, were the color of storm clouds over the ocean. Those eyes swept across the scene with the precision of a tactical assessment, the art supplies scattered on the tables, the young children frozen in place. Trevor and his crew standing too close to a girl in a wheelchair whose tear-streaked face told a story louder than words ever could. The lead rider killed his engine. One by one, the others followed suit until the park fell into a silence so complete that Lily could hear her own heartbeat hammering in her ears. The man dismounted with the fluid grace of someone half his size, his boots hitting the pavement with solid authority. He was at least 50, Lily guessed, but age had only concentrated his presence, distilled it into something pure and undeniable. He walked forward slowly, deliberately, his gaze never leaving Trevor's face. The other riders followed, spreading out in a loose semicircle behind him, a wall of leather and purpose. "Beautiful afternoon," the man said. His voice was surprisingly soft, a low rumble that somehow carried more weight than a shout. "Good day for the park, good day for kids to be outside enjoying the sunshine, making art." He paused, his eyes finally moving to Lily, and something in his expression shifted, softened and hardened simultaneously. Good day for treating each other with basic human decency. Trevor's swagger had evaporated, but teenage bravado was a stubborn thing. "This is none of your business, old man. We're just talking to our friend here." "Your friend." The man repeated the words as if tasting them, finding them sour. "Funny kind of friendship that involves kicking someone's wheelchair. Maybe friendship means something different to your generation." "We were just," Madison started, but her voice died under the collective gaze of 11 bikers who just witnessed her filming the whole thing. "Let me introduce myself," the man said, moving closer to Lily's wheelchair. He crouched down slowly, bringing himself to her eye level, a gesture of respect that made Lily's throat tighten. "My name is Marcus Reeves. These good people behind me are members of the Iron Guardians Motorcycle Club." He gestured to the others. "We were just passing through, heading to a charity event at the Children's Hospital, when we saw what was happening here." Up close, Lily could see the patches on his vest more clearly. The main one showed a shield with wings, and beneath it, words that made her breath catch. "Protecting those who cannot protect themselves." "What's your name, sweetheart?" Marcus asked gently. Lily." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Lily Martinez." "Lily." He said her name like it meant something. "That's a beautiful name. Strong. You know what lilies symbolize? Rebirth, renewal, rising up from difficult places." He placed a hand on her wheelchair's armrest, not grabbing, not controlling, just connecting. "Mind if I ask what happened here?" Lily's eyes darted to Trevor, old instincts screaming warnings. "Don't tell. It'll only make it worse later. They'll make you pay when the bikers leave." But Marcus seemed to read her fear like a book written in a language only he could understand. "Look at me, Lily. Not at them. At me." His storm cloud eyes held hers. "Whatever you say right now, whatever truth you speak, I give you my word, on everything I hold sacred, that there will be consequences for anyone who tries to make you pay for it later. Do you understand?" There was something in his voice, an absolute certainty, a promise made of iron, that made Lily believe him. She swallowed hard. "They've been bullying me for months. Today they kicked my chair, called me wheels, said I was pathetic, that I don't matter." The silence that followed was the kind that precedes earthquakes. Marcus closed his eyes for a long moment, his jaw working like he was physically chewing on something bitter. When he opened them again, they held a pain so raw that Lily almost looked away. "My daughter," he said quietly, still crouched beside Lily, "was born with cerebral palsy. Beautiful girl, brilliant mind, could recite poetry before she could walk, which she never did. Not traditionally, anyway." His voice roughened. "She used a wheelchair, purple like yours. She loved purple." He stood slowly, and when he turned to face Trevor and his crew, he seemed to have grown larger somehow, as if grief and purpose had given him mass. "Her name was Sophie. She died 3 years ago, not from her disability, but from a seizure that came out of nowhere. She was 14 years old. Marcus took a step toward Trevor, who now looked like he desperately wanted to disappear. But before she died, you know what hurt her most? It wasn't the seizures. It wasn't the difficulty moving through a world not built for her. It was kids like you. Look, man, we didn't know, Kyle started. Didn't know what? Marcus's voice finally rose, controlled but thunderous. Didn't know that a person in a wheelchair is still a person? Didn't know that cruelty leaves scars deeper than any physical injury? Didn't know that your words have weight, your actions have consequences, and your character is revealed in how you treat those who can't fight back? A woman stepped forward from the group of bikers, tall, with silver-streaked hair braided down her back and a scar running from her left eye to her jawline. "Name's Rita," she said, her voice carrying a slight rasp. "Lost my leg in Iraq. IED took it clean off below the knee." She tapped her left leg, and the hollow sound of prosthetic meeting leather boot echoed in the stillness. "Came home a hero," they said, "but I got the same stares, the same whispers, the same casual cruelty from people who thought my difference gave them permission to be cruel." Another rider stepped up, younger, maybe 30, with kind eyes and careful movements. "Danny, I'm deaf in my right ear. Took a baseball bat to the head when I was 16. Defending a kid from Bullies who thought his stutter made him an easy target." He smiled without humor. "The kid's fine now. Runs a successful business. The Bullies. Let's just say life has a way of humbling people who peak in high school." One by one, the other riders shared their stories. Disabilities visible and invisible, traumas survived, battles fought. Each testimony was a brick in a wall being built around Lily, a fortress of understanding and solidarity. Marcus turned back to Trevor, who now looked like a child caught in a spotlight he couldn't escape. "Here's what's going to happen. You and your friends are going to apologize to Lily. Real apologies, not the sorry you got caught variety. Then you're going to leave this park and think very carefully about the kind of person you want to be." "And if we don't?" Trevor's voice cracked on the last word, betraying his fear. Marcus smiled, but it was the smile of a wolf showing teeth. "Then we start making phone calls. See? We've got lawyers in our club. We've got social media experts who can make sure this little incident," he nodded toward Madison's phone, "gets seen by the right people, school boards, college admissions offices, future employers." He paused. "Or you could just apologize and walk away having learned something. Your choice." Trevor's face cycled through emotions, anger, fear, shame, defiance, before finally settling on something that might have been the beginning of remorse. He looked at Lily, really looked at her for perhaps the first time. He swallowed. "I'm sorry, that was messed up. What I did, what we did." It wasn't eloquent, it wasn't perfect, but Lily heard something in his voice that hadn't been there before. Genuine regret, or at least the seed of it. Madison, Kyle, and Jenna mumbled their own apologies, their earlier cruelty deflated like punctured tires. "Now leave," Marcus said simply, "and if any of us hear, that you've so much as looked at Lily wrong, we'll be back. And next time, we won't be this friendly." The four bullies left quickly, their retreat a stark contrast to their earlier swagger. Within moments, they disappeared around the community center, leaving behind only the echo of their shame. Marcus crouched down beside Lily again, his expression transformed. "You okay, sweetheart?" And that's when Lily broke. The tears she'd held back through the bullying, through the fear, through the confrontation, they came now in great heaving sobs, not tears of pain, but of release, of relief, of being seen and protected and valued. Rita was there immediately, kneeling on Lily's other side, her hand gentle on the girl's shoulder. "Let it out, honey. You're safe now. You're safe." Have you ever met someone who restored your faith in humanity when you needed it most? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. The other bikers formed a protective circle, their presence both shield and shelter. Children from the art table began cautiously approaching, their earlier fear replaced by awe. Mrs. Patterson finally emerged from the community center, her arms full of supplies, her face shocked at the scene before her. "What on earth?" "Everything's fine now, ma'am," Marcus said, standing. "Just some friends making sure everyone here can enjoy the park safely." As Lily's tears subsided, She looked up at the circle of faces surrounding her, these fierce, tattooed, leather-clad warriors who'd appeared like guardian angels on motorcycles, and felt something shift inside her chest. For the first time in 2 years, she didn't feel alone. For the first time since the accident, she didn't feel defined by her wheelchair. For the first time in months, she felt like maybe, just maybe, she was going to be okay. Marcus pulled out his phone. "Lily, what's your mom's number? I think she'd want to know about this, and if it's okay with her, I'd like to make sure you get home safe today." As Lily recited the numbers, watching Marcus dial with the careful precision of someone who understood that trust was sacred, she realized something profound. Strength wasn't about walking or running or standing tall. Strength was about showing up, about standing up for others, about choosing kindness when cruelty was easier. And these bikers, these supposedly scary, rough, intimidating people, were the strongest people she'd ever met. Rosa Martinez arrived at the park 17 minutes later, her Toyota sedan pulling into the parking lot with the urgency of a mother who'd received a call that began with, "Your daughter is fine," but she burst from the car, her nurse's scrubs still bearing the creases of a 12-hour shift, her eyes scanning the park with maternal radar until they locked onto Lily. Then she saw the motorcycles, the leather-clad riders. The massive bearded man standing protectively near her daughter. Marcus saw her fear and understood it immediately. He stepped back, giving Rosa clear access to Lily, his hands visible and non-threatening, the posture of someone who knew how mothers saw the world when their children were involved. "Mrs. Martinez," he said gently, "I'm Marcus Reeves. We spoke on the phone." Rosa barely acknowledged him, dropping to her knees beside Lily's wheelchair, hands running over her daughter's face, shoulders, arms, checking for injury the way she'd been doing since the accident, since the world proved itself capable of breaking precious things. "Mia, are you hurt? Did they—" "I'm okay, Mama," Lily said, and Rosa heard something in her daughter's voice that made her pause. Not trauma, not fear, something else, something that sounded almost like hope? "What happened?" Rosa stood, turning to Marcus with the protective ferocity of a woman who'd already lost too much to fate and wouldn't lose more to cruelty. Marcus explained, his words careful and precise, leaving nothing out, not the bullying, not the physical contact, not the intervention. As he spoke, Rosa's expression cycled through horror, rage, and finally, to Marcus's surprise, tears. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice breaking. "God, thank you. I've called the school. I've talked to parents. I've tried everything to make them stop. And they just—" she covered her face with her hands. "They just keep hurting her." Rita approached slowly, her movements deliberate and non-threatening. "Mrs. Martinez, I lost my leg in combat. Came home to stares and whispers and people who treated me like I was broken." She glanced at Lily. "Your daughter isn't broken. She's extraordinary. And she's got more courage than most soldiers I served with." Rosa looked between Rita and Marcus, seeing past the leather and tattoos to the humanity beneath. "Who are you people?" "We're the Iron Guardians," Marcus said. "A motorcycle club, yes, but not the kind you might be thinking of. We're veterans, first responders, people who've seen darkness and decided to push back against it." He pulled a card from his wallet, handing it to Rosa. "We have a program, Guardian Angels. We protect kids who are being bullied, especially kids with disabilities. We escort them to school, show up at events, make it clear they're not alone." "You do this officially?" Rosa studied the card, which bore the club's logo and a phone number. "We work with law enforcement, school districts, and child advocacy groups," Danny explained, stepping forward. "Everything legal and above board. We're not vigilantes. We're just people who believe that every kid deserves to feel safe." A younger rider, a woman with warm brown eyes and a sleeve of floral tattoos, approached with a gentle smile. "I'm Sarah. I'm also a licensed therapist. I run support groups for kids dealing with bullying and disability-related trauma." She crouched beside Lily. "If you'd ever like someone to talk to, someone who gets it, my door's always open." Rosa looked at her daughter, saw the way Lily was looking at these strangers who'd become saviors, and made a decision that would change both their lives. What would this Guardian Angels program involve? Over the next hour, as the sun began its descent toward the horizon, painting the park in shades of amber and gold, the details emerged like a blueprint for a new kind of safety. The Iron Guardians would provide escorts for Lily to and from school. Different members would rotate, ensuring she was never alone during vulnerable times. They'd attend school events, making their presence known, not threatening, but undeniable. They'd work with Rosa and the school administration to create an environment where bullying Lily would mean facing consequences that actually meant something. "But why?" Lily finally asked, her voice small but curious. "Why would you do this for me? You don't even know me." Marcus settled onto a nearby bench, gesturing for Lily to join him. The other riders gave them space, creating a bubble of privacy within the protection of the group. "Can I tell you about Sophie?" he asked. Lily nodded, her hands folded in her lap. "My daughter loved butterflies," Marcus began, his eyes distant with memory. "Used to say that she was like a caterpillar. Just because she couldn't move the same way as other kids didn't mean she wasn't going to be beautiful, wasn't going to fly in her own way." His voice thickened. She had this incredible imagination, would write these stories about a girl in a wheelchair who had magic wheels that could take her anywhere, the moon, the ocean floor, through time itself. He pulled out his wallet, extracting a worn photograph. A girl with Marcus's storm cloud eyes and a smile that could light up darkness sat in a purple wheelchair, holding a butterfly that had landed on her finger. "She was bullied mercilessly," Marcus continued. "Kids at school, kids in the neighborhood, even some adults who should have known better. They saw the chair, never the brilliant, funny, kind girl in it." He traced the edge of the photo with his thumb. "I tried to protect her. God knows I tried. But I was working 2 jobs after her mother left. Couldn't handle Sophie's medical needs," she said, "and I couldn't be everywhere at once." Lily's chest tightened, sensing where this story was going. "One day she came home and told me she'd made friends with some kids at the library. I was so happy, so relieved that maybe things were turning around." Marcus's jaw clenched. "They weren't friends. They'd invited her to a birthday party as a joke. She showed up, all dressed up, excited, and they laughed at her, filmed her, posted it online with the caption, 'Why would we invite a broken toy to a party?'" "That's horrible," Lily whispered. "The seizure that killed her came 3 days later. The doctor said there was no connection, that it was just her condition, just bad timing." Marcus finally looked at Lily, and his eyes held the weight of years. "But I know better. I know that stress, heartbreak, cruelty, they take a toll. They weaken us in ways that don't show up on medical charts." He carefully returned the photo to his wallet. "After she died, I fell apart, started drinking, stopped caring. The club, these people, they saved me. Rita dragged me to a meeting. Danny showed up at my door every day for a month just to make sure I ate. Sarah counseled me through the worst of the grief. Rita, overhearing, called out from where she stood with the other riders. 'You saved yourself, Marcus. We just reminded you why you needed to.'" Marcus smiled slightly. "Maybe, but what they really did was help me figure out how to turn my pain into purpose. Sophie's death had to mean something. So we started the Guardian Angels program. Now we protect kids like her, kids like you." Lily felt tears building again, but these were different, not tears of pain or fear, but of understanding, of being seen not as a victim or a burden, but as someone worth fighting for. "I wish I could have met her," Lily said softly. "Sophie." "She would have loved you," Marcus replied, "would have probably written a story about you, the girl whose courage shone brighter than chrome." He stood, offering his hand. "But here's the thing, Lily. This isn't about us rescuing you. You saved yourself today. You stood up to Trevor, spoke truth to his cruelty even when you were terrified. All we did was make sure you didn't have to stand alone." Across the park, Rosa was in deep conversation with Sarah and 2 other riders. Lily could see her mother's posture changing, the constant tension she'd carried for 2 years gradually easing, as if someone had finally helped her put down a weight she'd been carrying alone. "Mrs. Martinez," Sarah was saying, "there are also support groups for parents of children with disabilities. People who understand the unique challenges, the grief of a different future than you'd imagined, the constant advocacy required." Rosa's eyes glistened. "I didn't know how much I needed that until you said it." "You're not alone anymore," Rita said firmly. "None of you are." As the evening deepened, more club members shared their stories. Mike, A writer with gray temples and kind eyes talked about his son with autism who'd been bullied until the guardians intervened. Jessica, whose arms bore burn scars from a house fire, spoke about rebuilding confidence after trauma. Each story was a thread in a larger tapestry, a community built on shared pain transformed into collective strength. The younger kids from the art program, their initial fear forgotten, had gravitated toward the motorcycles with the universal fascination children have for powerful machines and interesting people. Danny was showing a group of 6-year-olds the intricate mechanics of his bike, explaining each part with patience and enthusiasm. "Can I sit on it?" a small boy asked shyly. "With your parents' permission, absolutely," Danny replied, and the resulting joy on the child's face could have powered the city. But not everyone was comfortable with the biker's presence. A man in expensive athletic wear approached Marcus, his expression tight with what he probably thought was justified concern. "Excuse me, but is it appropriate for a motorcycle gang to be hanging around a children's program? Some of the parents are concerned." Marcus turned slowly, his expression neutral. "We're a club, not a gang. There's a difference. And we're here because a child was being physically assaulted while the appropriate adults were nowhere to be found." The man's face flushed. Boys will be boys. And, no, Rita stepped forward, her voice cutting, boys will be what we teach them to be. If we teach them that cruelty is excused as boys being boys, we're teaching them to be predators. If we teach them that power comes with responsibility, that strength means protecting the vulnerable, then they'll be men worth respecting. I just think... "Sir," Marcus interrupted, his voice still calm but carrying unmistakable authority. "With all due respect, you think we're the danger here? We're veterans, firefighters, EMTs, teachers, parents. We've got more background checks between us than your average PTA. Meanwhile, 4 teenagers were physically assaulting a disabled child, and nobody stopped them until we showed up." He stepped closer. "So maybe the question isn't whether we should be here. Maybe the question is, where were all of you?" The man opened his mouth, closed it, and finally walked away without another word. Mrs. Patterson, who'd been observing everything, approached with 2 cups of coffee from the community center. "For you," she said, handing one to Marcus and one to Rosa. "And for the record, I'm glad you were here. I should have been outside. I should have seen what was happening. That's on me." "The system failed, Lily," Marcus said gently. "One person can't fix a broken system, but a community can." "Then let's be that community," Mrs. Patterson said firmly. As the light faded and parents began collecting their children, the reality of what came next settled over the group. The bikers had made their stand, but they couldn't stay forever. Tomorrow, Lily would have to face school again, face Trevor and his crew, face the aftermath. Lily must have been thinking the same thing because she turned to Marcus with worry clouding her eyes. "What if they come after me when you're not around?" Marcus knelt beside her wheelchair one more time. "Remember what I promised. There will be consequences." He pulled out his phone, showing her a group chat with dozens of members. "The Iron Guardians have chapters across 3 states. We have people everywhere. But more than that, we're going to make sure your school takes this seriously." "They've tried before," Rosa said bitterly. "Meetings, discussions, we'll look into it. Nothing changes." "Because they were dealing with one worried mother," Sarah said. "Now they're dealing with us, and we have resources, legal resources, media contacts, advocacy organizations. We'll go to the school board if necessary. We'll make noise that can't be ignored." Rita added, "And Lily, honey, we're going to teach you some things too. Self-defense techniques for wheelchair users, de-escalation strategies, how to document incidents. You're going to be prepared, and you're going to know you're not fighting alone." Danny stepped forward, his expression thoughtful. "There's also something else to consider. What happened today? It was witnessed by other kids who've been bystanders, too afraid to intervene. Sometimes all it takes is one person standing up to change the whole dynamic." As if summoning them with his words, 3 children from the art program approached hesitantly. They were around Lily's age, familiar faces from school, though Lily had never really talked to them. "Lily?" A girl with glasses and braces spoke up. "We saw what happened, what Trevor did. And we saw what you said to him before these guys showed up." She took a breath. "That was really brave. And we're sorry we didn't help. We were scared. But that's not an excuse. We want you to know," a boy with curly hair added, "that if they bother you at school, we're going to say something. We're going to stand with you." The third child, a quiet girl Lily recognized from math class, simply said, "You're not alone. When you were young, did you ever stand up for someone being bullied, or wish you had? What would you tell your younger self now? Drop your thoughts below." Lily felt something crack open in her chest, not breaking, but blooming. Like Marcus's butterflies emerging from cocoons. "Thank you," she whispered, and meant it more than she'd ever meant anything. As the volunteers began packing up the art supplies and the last families trickled out of the park, Marcus gathered the Iron Guardians for a brief huddle. When they broke, he returned to Lily and Rosa with a plan. "Tomorrow's Saturday. Why don't you both come to our clubhouse? We'll introduce you to more of the members, show you around, let Lily meet some of the other kids in our Guardian Angels program. No pressure, just a chance to see we're a real organization with real support to offer." Rosa looked at Lily, a silent question passing between them. Lily nodded. "I'd like that." "Then it's settled," Marcus said. "Rita will text you the address. Come around noon. We'll have lunch ready." As the Iron Guardians prepared to leave, each rider stopped by Lily to say goodbye. Some offered words of encouragement, others simply squeezed her shoulder or touched her hand, small gestures that carried the weight of solidarity. When Marcus mounted his bike, he looked back one more time. "Hey, Lily?" She turned, her hands resting on her wheels. "Sophie would have been proud to know you," he said. Then he started his engine, and the familiar rumble filled the air, no longer threatening, but protective, like thunder promising rain to a drought-stricken land. The Iron Guardians rolled out of the park in formation, their taillights glowing like protective spirits in the gathering dusk. Rosa watched them go, then looked at her daughter. Really looked at her, seeing past the wheelchair to the young woman who'd found courage in impossible circumstances. "You were right," Rosa said softly, "about coming today, about not hiding." Lily smiled, a real smile, not the fragile, fearful thing she'd been wearing for months. "Mama, I think things are going to be different now." "I think you're right, Mija." Rosa began pushing the wheelchair toward their car, but Lily stopped her. "I can do it," Lily said, her hands gripping her wheels with new confidence. "I want to do it." And as mother and daughter made their way across the park, Lily propelling herself forward while Rosa walked beside her, no longer pushing but accompanying, the last light of day painted everything gold. Behind them, the spot where the confrontation had happened looked ordinary now, unmarked. But Lily knew better. That patch of ground was sacred now, consecrated by courage, hers and theirs. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. School on Monday would be a test. The weeks ahead would require vigilance and strength. But tonight, for the first time in longer than she could remember, Lily Martinez went to sleep feeling something she'd almost forgotten existed. Hope. Monday morning arrived with the weight of inevitability. Lily sat at the breakfast table, pushing scrambled eggs around her plate while her stomach twisted itself into knots. The weekend at the Iron Guardians clubhouse had been transformative. She'd met 6 other kids in the Guardian Angels program, learned wheelchair self-defense techniques from Rita, and even sat on Marcus's motorcycle while he told her stories about the open road. She'd felt powerful, protected, ready. But now, staring at her backpack and knowing that in 30 minutes she'd be rolling through the front doors of Jefferson Middle School, all that confidence felt fragile as spun glass. "He'll be there," Marcus had said yesterday, his hand steady on her shoulder. "You ready?" She'd nodded then. Now she wasn't so sure. Rosa appeared in the doorway, already dressed for her shift but moving with unusual slowness, as if reluctant to start the day. "Lily, there's someone here to see you." Before Lily could ask who, Marcus walked into the kitchen, and her heart did a complicated flip between relief and embarrassment. He wasn't in his riding leathers. Instead, he wore dark jeans and a button-down shirt that somehow made him look both more approachable and more intimidating, like a wolf in shepherd's clothing. "Morning," he said, his voice gentle. "Thought you might like an escort to school today." "You don't have to," Lily started. "I know I don't have to. I want to." Marcus pulled out a chair and sat across from her. Lily. First days after an intervention are critical. Trevor and his crew need to see that we weren't just passing through. They need to understand that you have protection that doesn't disappear when it's inconvenient. Rosa poured Marcus coffee without asking, a gesture of trust that spoke volumes. The school knows you're coming? I called Principal Hendricks on Friday afternoon. Had a very productive conversation about bullying policies, documentation procedures, and the consequences of failing to protect vulnerable students. Marcus's smile was sharp. She's expecting us. So is the school resource officer, Officer Brennan. Good man, former Marine. He and I served in the same theater. He's on our side. Lily felt something loosen in her chest. She wasn't walking, rolling into battle alone. Okay, she said quietly. Let's do this. Marcus followed Rosa's car to Jefferson Middle School in his pickup truck, a sensible compromise, as arriving on a motorcycle might send the wrong message to administrators already nervous about the Iron Guardians' involvement. But as they pulled into the parking lot, Lily saw that Marcus hadn't come alone. 3 other vehicles were already parked near the entrance: Rita's Jeep, Danny's SUV, and a van she didn't recognize. As they parked, the doors opened, and 7 members of the Iron Guardians emerged, all dressed in civilian clothes, but wearing small pins on their shirts, the club's Shield and Wings logo. We're not trying to intimidate, Rita explained as she approached Lily's door. We're just making a presence known. Sometimes that's all it takes. Sarah, the therapist, wore professional attire that wouldn't look out of place in a parent-teacher conference. I'm here as a witness and an advocate, everything by the book, but nothing gets swept under the rug today. The group moved together toward the entrance, a formation that managed to be both protective and non-threatening. Students arriving for school stopped and stared, whispers spreading like wildfire through the parking lot. Lily felt dozens of eyes on her, but for once, the attention didn't make her want to disappear. She rolled through the front doors with her head up. Principal Hendricks was waiting in the lobby, a slim woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and an expression that suggested she hadn't slept well all weekend. Behind her stood Officer Brennan, exactly as Marcus had described, former military, solid as granite, with kind eyes that missed nothing. Mr. Reeves, Principal Hendricks said, her tone carefully neutral. And company, Principal Hendricks. Marcus extended his hand, which she shook after a moment's hesitation. These are fellow members of the Iron Guardians. We're here to ensure Lily's first day back is safe and to discuss implementing better protections moving forward. I've reviewed our bullying policies over the weekend, Hendricks said, her gaze moving to Lily. Ms. Martinez, I owe you an apology. Our system failed you. That ends today. It was a start. Not enough, but a start. Officer Brennan stepped forward, nodding to Marcus with the recognition of shared service. Lily, I'll be keeping an extra eye on things today. If you experience any problems, any at all, you come find me immediately. Understood? Lily nodded, her voice steady. Yes, sir. The first bell rang, students flooding the hallways with the chaotic energy of Monday morning. Lily felt her pulse quicken as she rolled toward her locker, hyper-aware of the Iron Guardians flanking her at a respectful distance, close enough to intervene, far enough to let her maintain independence. Her locker was on the 2nd floor, accessible by elevator. As she waited for the doors to open, she heard a familiar voice that made her blood run cold. Well, look who brought her babysitters. Trevor stood by the water fountain, Kyle and Madison beside him. But something was different. Their usual swagger was muted, replaced by a wariness that hadn't been there before. Trevor's eyes kept darting to Marcus, who stood 15 feet away with his arms crossed in an expression that promised consequences. Got something to say to Lily? Marcus asked quietly. Trevor's jaw worked. For a moment, Lily thought he might actually apologize again, or at least walk away. But then Madison whispered something to him, and his face hardened with teenage pride, that stubborn refusal to admit defeat that had nothing to do with courage and everything to do with ego. I'm not scared of you, Trevor said, but his voice betrayed him. You should be, Rita replied calmly, stepping forward. Not because we'd ever hurt you, we wouldn't, but because we represent something you've never had to face before. Real consequences. My dad's a lawyer, Madison said, her voice shrill. You can't just harass us. Sarah pulled out her phone, tapping the screen to show a video. This is from Friday. Your phone, actually, Madison, posted publicly to your TikTok before you deleted it, shows Trevor kicking Lily's wheelchair, verbal harassment, assault of a disabled minor. She looked up. Her therapist's gentle demeanor replaced by something far more formidable. You're right. Your dad's a lawyer, which means he'll know exactly how much trouble you're in if Lily's family decides to press charges. The color drained from Madison's face. Principal Hendricks, who'd followed them upstairs, finally intervened. Trevor, Madison, Kyle, my office, now. We didn't do anything today, Kyle protested. No, but we're going to discuss what you did on Friday, what consequences you'll face, and what changes in behavior are required for you to remain at this school. Hendricks's tone brooked no argument. Move. As Trevor walked past Lily, he paused. For a moment, something flickered across his face. Shame, perhaps, or the beginning of actual remorse. I really am sorry, he said quietly, so only she could hear. My dad, he always says people like you are just looking for handouts, that you're weak. I believed him. I was wrong. It wasn't perfect. It didn't undo the months of torment, but it was real, and Lily recognized truth when she heard it. Then be better than him, she said simply. Trevor nodded once and continued toward the principal's office, his crew trailing behind him with significantly less bravado than they'd arrived with. The rest of the morning unfolded like a masterclass in systemic change. In homeroom, Mrs. Patterson made an announcement about a new school-wide initiative on disability awareness and anti-bullying. At lunch, Officer Brennan sat at a table with Lily and the 3 kids from the park, Emma with her glasses, Jason with curly hair, and quiet Maya, who'd kept their promise to stand with her. Other students, emboldened by official support and visible protection, began joining their table. By the time the lunch period ended, Lily sat surrounded by 12 kids, all talking and laughing like this was completely normal, like she'd always belonged. Marcus and the other guardians had left after the morning confrontation, but their presence lingered like a protective spell. Students who'd witnessed Friday's intervention whispered stories that grew with each retelling. By afternoon, the Iron Guardians had become legends, and Lily had become the girl under their protection. But the real test came during last period, in Ms. Rodriguez's English class. Lily rolled in to find Trevor already seated, his eyes downcast. The class fell silent as she passed him, everyone remembering Friday, waiting to see what would happen. Trevor's hands were clasped tightly on his desk, his knuckles white. As Lily positioned herself at her accessible desk near the window, Trevor stood abruptly. The room tensed. He walked to Lily's desk and stood there, his whole body radiating discomfort. I talked to Principal Hendricks and my parents, and I'm really trying to understand what I did. How messed up it was. He swallowed hard. I know sorry isn't enough. I know I can't just erase what happened, but I want you to know I'm getting help, counseling. And I'm going to do better. The class held its collective breath. Lily looked up at Trevor, really looked at him, and saw not a monster, but a broken kid who'd been taught the wrong things by the wrong people. Someone who might, with work and time and genuine effort, become better. Thank you for saying that, Lily said carefully. And I hope you mean it. Because it's not just about me, Trevor. It's about every person you'll meet who's different from you, every person who needs kindness instead of cruelty. Trevor nodded, his eyes glistening. I know. I'm going to try, I swear. He returned to his seat and Ms. Rodriguez began class, her voice deliberately cheerful as she launched into a discussion of To Kill a Mockingbird. Fitting, Lily thought, given the day's lessons about courage and standing up for what's right. As the final bell rang and students filed out, Emma, Jason, and Maya waited for Lily. Want to come to the library? Emma asked. We're working on a group project for history, and we could use another person, if you want. It was a small thing, an ordinary invitation, the kind that happened every day in schools across the country. But for Lily, it was everything. I'd love to, she said. When Rosa picked her up after school, she found her daughter surrounded by new friends, laughing about something Maya had said, her face bright with genuine happiness. Good day, Rosa asked, though the answer was written all over Lily's face. Really good day, Mama. That evening, Marcus called to check in. Lily could hear the relief in his voice when she recounted the day's events. Trevor's apology, the growing circle of friends, the feeling of finally belonging. "You did that," Marcus said firmly, "not us. We just made sure you had the space to do it safely. The courage was all yours." "I learned it from Sophie," Lily replied softly, "from her story. From what you told me about her strength." There was a long pause, and when Marcus spoke again, his voice was thick. "She would have been so proud to know you, Lily. So damn proud." After they said goodbye, Lily sat in her room, looking at the purple spokes of her wheelchair catching the lamplight. She thought about Sophie, about butterflies, about girls in magic wheelchairs who could travel anywhere. She pulled out her notebook, the one she'd kept hidden for months, afraid to write down dreams that felt too fragile to survive in the real world, and began to write. Once upon a time, there was a girl who traveled not in spite of her wheels, but because of them. They took her to places most people never saw, to the depths of courage, to the heights of dignity, to the vast landscapes of her own strength. 2 weeks later, on a Saturday afternoon, the Iron Guardians held their monthly community event at Riverside Park, the same park where everything had changed. Lily was there, not as a victim needing rescue, but as a member of the Guardian Angels program, helping to set up tables and welcome other kids who needed what she'd found: protection, community, and proof that they mattered. Trevor was there too, volunteering alongside his parents, who looked appropriately humbled and committed to their son's rehabilitation. He and Lily had reached an understanding, not friendship, not yet, maybe not ever, but something honest. He was doing the work, attending counseling, and publicly supporting the disability awareness campaign the school had implemented. "Lily," Marcus called from across the park, "come here. Want you to meet someone." She rolled over to find him standing with a young woman in a wheelchair, electric, customized, covered in stickers and art. The woman had Sophie's eyes. "This is Crystal," Marcus said, his hand on the woman's shoulder. "She's a sophomore at State College, studying to be a disability rights lawyer. She's also part of our program, one of our first Guardian Angels." "Actually?" Crystal extended her hand with a brilliant smile. "Marcus told me about you, about what happened. Welcome to the family, Lily." As they talked, Lily learned that Crystal had been bullied mercilessly in middle school until the Iron Guardians intervened. Now she was thriving, leading advocacy efforts and planning to change laws that failed people with disabilities. "You did that," Lily said in wonder. "After everything, you became this." "After everything, I decided that if the world was going to try to make me small, I'd just have to become too big to shrink," Crystal replied. "And so will you. I can tell." As the sun set over the park, casting everything in that same golden light that had witnessed Lily's transformation, Marcus gathered everyone for a group photo. Kids in wheelchairs, kids with prosthetics, kids with invisible disabilities, and the leather-clad warriors who'd sworn to protect them. All together, all smiling, all proof that strength came in forms the world often overlooked. "Say Guardian Angels," Sarah called out. "Guardian Angels," they chorused, and the camera captured the moment, imperfect, beautiful, real. Later, as the crowd thinned and families headed home, Lily found herself alone with Marcus by the basketball court where Trevor had first kicked her wheelchair. The ground looked different now, consecrated by courage and transformation. "Marcus," she said quietly, "I've been writing stories about a girl with magic wheels." His eyes lit up. "Like Sophie used to write. Inspired by her, and by you, and by everyone who showed me that my wheelchair doesn't define me. It's just how I move through a world I'm going to change." Marcus crouched beside her, his storm cloud eyes bright with tears he didn't bother hiding. "Then you keep writing, Lily Martinez. You write those stories and you change that world. And when you do, know that somewhere, Sophie is cheering you on." "I think she already is," Lily said, looking up at the first stars appearing in the darkening sky. "I think she sent you to me." "Maybe she did," Marcus agreed. "Maybe she did." 3 months later, spring had transformed Riverside Park into a riot of color. Cherry blossoms painted the air pink, tulips lined the walking paths in brilliant waves of red and yellow, and the river itself seemed to sparkle with renewed life. The transformation of the park mirrored another, more profound change, the one in Lily Martinez. She sat at a picnic table covered with poster boards, markers, and a laptop displaying the website she'd designed over the past weeks. Around her, members of the Iron Guardians worked alongside students from Jefferson Middle School, setting up for an event that had started as a small idea and grown into something that would reshape their entire community. "Lily, where do you want the banner?" Emma called out, struggling with one end of a massive vinyl sign while Jason held the other. "Over the main stage," Lily called back, then rolled over to help direct its placement. The banner read, "Wheels of Change, First Annual Disability Awareness and Anti-Bullying Festival." It had been Lily's idea, born from those stories she'd started writing, stories that had evolved from private journal entries into something she'd nervously shared with Marcus, who'd immediately recognized their power. With Sarah's help, she'd turned her narratives into a presentation. With the school's support, that presentation had become a movement. "I can't believe this is really happening," Maya said, appearing beside Lily with a box of programs. 3 months ago, you were eating lunch alone. Now you're organizing a festival that's expecting 500 people. Lily smiled, but it was tinged with remembrance. 3 months ago, I thought I was invisible. Turns out I was just waiting for the right people to help me see myself. Rosa emerged from the community center carrying a tray of refreshments, her face bright with pride that no longer carried the shadow of helplessness. Everything had changed for her too. The parent support group Sarah had connected her with had given her tools, community, and the knowledge that her daughter's disability wasn't something to grieve, but to navigate with strength and advocacy. "Mija, Channel 7 News just confirmed. They'll be here at 2 o'clock for the ribbon cutting," Rosa said, setting down the tray. "My daughter, the activist." "Mama, don't," Lily said, embarrassed but pleased. "Don't be modest about changing the world, honey," Rita called from where she was helping set up the motorcycle display. The Iron Guardians had brought 10 bikes, each with informational placards explaining the riders' disabilities and how they'd adapted to ride. The display was titled, "Different Wheels, Same Freedom." Marcus approached with Trevor and his parents in tow. The transformation in Trevor over the past 3 months had been remarkable. He'd completed intensive therapy, volunteered 50 hours with disability advocacy organizations, and most significantly, had begun speaking at middle schools about his experience as a bully and the process of change. "Lily," Trevor said, his voice steady but respectful, "my counselor helped me write something I'd like to read today, during the program. If you think that's appropriate." Lily studied him. The swagger was gone, replaced by genuine humility. His apology wasn't performative anymore. It was lived daily in actions that spoke louder than words ever could. "What's it about?" she asked. "It's about what I learned, about how bullying isn't about the victim. It's about the bully's own pain, insecurity, and learned behavior, about how hurt people until they choose to heal instead." He met her eyes. "And about how you taught me that true strength is vulnerability, not cruelty." Lily felt emotion tighten her throat. 3 months ago, she would have said no, would have been too angry, too hurt. But healing had given her something she hadn't expected, the ability to see Trevor's humanity alongside her own pain. "Okay," she said, "you can share it, after the keynote." Trevor's mother, a well-dressed woman who'd arrived that first day at the principal's office full of defensive outrage, stepped forward. "Lily, I want to apologize too. I raised my son with some deeply flawed beliefs about people with disabilities, beliefs I inherited from my own parents. This has been a reckoning for our whole family." Her voice trembled. "Thank you for giving Trevor the chance to become better than we taught him to be." "People can change," Lily said simply, "if they choose to. If they do the work." By noon, the park was filling with people. Students from 5 different schools had come, along with their families. Local disability advocacy organizations set up information booths. The mayor arrived with city council members, clearly recognizing a photo opportunity, but bringing official support that would translate to policy changes. Crystal rolled up in her customized wheelchair, followed by 8 other college students, all Guardian Angels alumni who'd thrived after the Iron Guardians' intervention. They wore matching T-shirts that read, "Protected, Empowered, Unstoppable." "Look at you," Crystal said, embracing Lily. "From scared middle schooler to festival organizer in 3 months. That's what I'm talking about. I learned from the best, Lily replied, gesturing to the Iron Guardians who'd become family. Danny was demonstrating adaptive motorcycle controls to a group of veterans. Rita was speaking with parents about the Guardian Angels program, her waiting list already 20 families deep. Sarah was conducting impromptu counseling sessions at a quiet table under an oak tree, helping families navigate trauma and find resources. And Marcus stood near the main stage, watching everything with an expression Lily had learned to read. Pride mixed with grief, joy shadowed by loss, present triumph anchored to past pain. She rolled over to him. "You okay?" He nodded slowly. "Just thinking about Sophie. About how much she would have loved this. All these people coming together, choosing kindness, choosing to see each other as humans first." "She's here," Lily said with certainty, "in all of this. She's the reason you started the Guardian Angels, the reason you saw me that day, the reason any of this is possible." Marcus's eyes glistened. "You know, her birthday would have been next week. She would have been 17. Lily reached into the bag hanging from her wheelchair and pulled out a notebook, the same one where she'd started writing stories that night after her first good day at school. "I wrote something for her. Would you like to hear it?" "I'd love to." Lily opened to a page marked with a pressed purple flower and read, "Sophie never got to see me, but I see her in every act of courage. In every moment, someone chooses kindness over cruelty, protection over indifference. She lives in the rumble of motorcycle engines that promise safety, in the circle of leather-clad warriors who guard children they don't know because someone's daughter taught them that love transcends loss. Sophie's magic wheels didn't take her body anywhere, but her spirit? Her spirit travels through every person who refuses to let disability define dignity, through every bully who chooses to change, through every scared kid who learns they're not alone. Sophie's wheels took her exactly where she needed to go, into the hearts of people who would carry her forward." Marcus was crying openly now, and so was Lily, and neither of them cared. Some tears weren't about sadness, they were about beauty too profound for any other expression. "Thank you," Marcus whispered. "Thank you for giving her story a different ending." At 2:00, the festival officially began. Principal Hendricks opened with a speech about Jefferson Middle School's new comprehensive anti-bullying and disability inclusion initiatives, policies that Lily had helped draft, lending her lived experience to administrative language that would protect future students. The mayor declared the first Saturday of every April Disability Awareness and Inclusion Day in their city, a proclamation that would ripple through schools, businesses, and community organizations. Has anyone in your life ever transformed pain into purpose the way Lily did? Or have you done this yourself? I'd love to hear your stories of turning hardship into hope. Share in the comments. Then it was Lily's turn. She rolled up the ramp to the stage, her purple wheels catching the sunlight, and looked out at 500 faces. 3 months ago, she would have been terrified. Now, she was ready. "My name is Lily Martinez," she began, her voice clear and strong. 3 months ago, I was being bullied mercilessly by kids who saw my wheelchair and decided I didn't matter. I was scared, isolated, and convinced that my difference made me less than human." The crowd was silent, hanging on every word. Then something happened that changed everything. A group of people who society often judges by their appearance, their tattoos, their leather jackets, saw me being hurt and chose to intervene. The Iron Guardians didn't just save me that day. They showed me that heroes don't always look like what we expect, that strength comes in many forms, that community can be built from shared pain transformed into shared purpose. She gestured to where Marcus and the other Guardians stood, and the crowd erupted in applause. "But here's what I really learned," Lily continued, her voice rising with passion. "I learned that my wheelchair doesn't define me. It's just how I move through a world I'm going to help change. I learned that bullies are often broken people who need healing, not just punishment. I learned that bystanders who find courage to become upstanders can shift entire cultures. And I learned that every single person here, regardless of ability or disability, has inherent dignity that no one has the right to diminish." The applause was thunderous now, but Lily wasn't finished. This festival isn't just about disability awareness. It's about building the kind of community where everyone belongs, where differences are celebrated, where protection is offered freely and accepted without shame. It's about choosing every single day to see each other's humanity first. She paused, letting her gaze sweep across the crowd, students who'd once ignored her, teachers who'd failed to protect her, community members who'd looked away. All of them here now, bearing witness to transformation. Sophie Reeves never got to see this day, Lily said, her voice softening. She was Marcus's daughter, a girl who loved butterflies and believed that wheels could be magic if you knew how to use them. She died too young, her spirit wounded by the same kind of cruelty I faced. But she didn't die for nothing. Her story became the seed of the Guardian Angels program. Her pain became purpose. Her memory became a movement. Lily looked directly at Marcus, seeing the tears streaming down his face, seeing him mouth, "Thank you." So this festival is dedicated to Sophie, and to every kid who's ever felt invisible, broken, or less than. You are seen. You are whole. You are more than enough. And if you need protection while you learn to believe that, we'll be right there. A community of guardians wearing leather or scrubs or business suits or whatever we wear. Because protecting each other isn't just what good people do. It's what humanity looks like when we choose to be our best selves. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. After Lily's speech, Trevor took the stage, visibly nervous but committed. His hands shook as he unfolded his paper, but his voice held steady. "I was a bully," he began, no preamble or excuse. "I targeted Lily because she was different, because my father taught me that people with disabilities were weak, and because I was too cowardly to question what I'd been taught." The crowd was uncomfortably silent now, but Trevor pushed forward. "What I did was assault. It was cruel. It was unforgivable, and yet Lily and this community have given me the chance to try to earn forgivenesses anyway, through action and change." He looked directly at Lily. "I can never undo the hurt I caused, but I can spend the rest of my life making sure I never cause it again. And maybe, if I'm lucky, I can prevent someone else from making the same mistakes I did." He shared his journey through therapy, the painful realization of how his family's prejudices had shaped him. The work he was still doing to unlearn harmful beliefs and build healthier ones. If there's another kid out there like I was, someone who's bullying others because you're hurting inside, because you were taught wrong, because you think cruelty makes you strong, please hear me. It doesn't. It makes you small. It makes you weak. Real strength is what Lily showed me. Real courage is vulnerability, not violence. When Trevor finished, the applause was more muted but genuine. Recognition that redemption was possible, that people could grow, that even those who'd caused harm could become part of the healing. The rest of the festival unfolded like a celebration of everything that makes humanity beautiful. A wheelchair dance performance that brought the audience to tears with its grace and power. Panel discussions where people with disabilities shared their stories with nuance and humor. The Iron Guardians motorcycle display drew crowds fascinated by adaptive technology and the spirit of riders who refused to let disability limit freedom. Children painted at art stations, creating a massive mural titled "What Inclusion Looks Like." A riot of colors and styles, hands and wheels, faces and hearts, all interconnected. Local businesses pledged to improve accessibility. The school district announced funding for new inclusion programs. 3 more Guardian Angels chapters formed that afternoon. Parents and community members inspired to create similar protection for vulnerable kids in their own areas. As the sun began to set, casting that familiar golden light across the park, Lily found herself surrounded by everyone who'd made this possible. Marcus, whose pain had become purpose, Rita, Danny, and Sarah, whose disabilities had become testimonies of strength, Crystal and the other Guardian Angels alumni, proof that survival could become thriving, Emma, Jason, and Maya, friends who'd chosen allyship when it would have been easier to look away, Rosa, a mother who'd found her own voice in advocating for her daughter, even Trevor, a former enemy becoming something more complicated, not quite friend, but fellow traveler on the road to becoming better. "How are you feeling?" Marcus asked, settling onto a bench while Lily positioned her wheelchair beside him. Overwhelmed, happy, grateful, terrified that I'll wake up and this will all have been a dream. Marcus smiled. It's real. You made it real. This whole community, all these changes, that was you, Lily. It was us, she corrected, all of us together. Rita appeared with a box she'd been carrying around all day. Speaking of all of us, we have something for you. She opened it to reveal a leather vest, customized to fit over Lily's smaller frame, with the Iron Guardians logo on the back and a special patch on the front. Guardian Angel, honorary member. Lily's breath caught. I can't. This is your family, Danny said simply. Family gets colors. Sarah helped Lily put on the vest, adjusting it carefully, and Lily felt the weight of it, not just the physical leather, but the symbolic weight of belonging, protection, and community. There's something else, Marcus said, pulling an envelope from his jacket. Sophie kept a journal. I've never shown it to anyone, but I think she would have wanted you to have this. He handed Lily a single page, carefully preserved in a clear sleeve. Sophie's handwriting was looping and artistic, decorated with tiny drawings of butterflies and flowers. Dear future girl who needs this. If you're reading this, it means my dad gave it to you because you're going through something hard. Maybe you're being bullied like me. Maybe you feel invisible. Maybe you think your disability makes you less than others. Here's what I want you to know. You are magic. Not in spite of your wheels or your differences, but because of who you are under all of that. The world will try to make you small. Don't let it. Take up space. Be loud when you need to be. Be soft when you want to be. But most importantly, be yourself. Completely, unapologetically, radiantly yourself. My wheels might not take me everywhere my body wants to go, but my spirit, it goes everywhere. Through the people who love me, through the stories I write, through you reading this, knowing you're not alone. You've got this. And if you forget, remember that a girl named Sophie believed in you before you even existed. Love, Sophie P.S. My dad is the best. Let him help you. He needs it as much as you do. Lily clutched the page to her chest, tears flowing freely. I'll keep it forever, I promise. I know you will, Marcus said, just like you'll keep her spirit alive in everything you do. As the festival wound down and families began to leave, a group of younger children approached Lily, kids who'd watched her speak, who'd seen her confidence and strength, who'd witnessed what was possible when courage met community support. Are you really in a motorcycle club? One small girl asked, her eyes wide as she looked at Lily's vest. Honorary member, Lily said with a smile. The Iron Guardians protect kids who need help. Do you think, the girl said shyly, they would protect me too? Kids at school say mean things about my hearing aids. Lily's heart clenched and expanded simultaneously. She gestured for the girl to come closer. What's your name? Zoe. Zoe, the Iron Guardians protect anyone who needs protection, but first I want you to know something important. Lily touched her wheelchair's purple spokes. See these wheels? For a long time I thought they made me weak. Different. Less than. But they don't. They're just how I move through the world. Your hearing aids? They're just technology helping you hear. They don't define you. Your courage, your kindness, your spirit, that's what defines you. The little girl nodded, processing this. But if kids are being mean, we'll absolutely help, Marcus added, crouching down to Zoe's level. Want me to talk to your parents about the Guardian Angels program? Zoe nodded enthusiastically, and as her parents approached, looking both grateful and overwhelmed, Lily understood something profound. This wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. The festival had been one day, but the movement would continue, rippling outward, protecting kid after kid, changing hearts and minds and systems. Sophie's spirit wasn't just alive, it was multiplying, spreading like those butterflies she'd loved, landing on person after person and transforming them. That evening, after everything was cleaned up and put away, after the last attendees had left and the sun had fully set, Lily sat in the park with Marcus, Rosa, and the core Iron Guardians members who'd become her chosen family. The park's lights created halos around them, moths dancing in the glow, the river's whisper providing a gentle soundtrack. 3 months ago, Lily said softly, I sat in this park thinking my life was over, that I'd always be the girl everyone pitied or mocked, that my disability defined every possibility. And now, Rita asked, now I know I was wrong. My disability is part of me, but it's not the most interesting thing about me. Not the most important thing. Lily smiled, touching her vest. I'm a writer, a speaker, an activist, a friend, a daughter, a guardian angel. I'm someone with a story worth telling and a future worth fighting for. Rosa squeezed her daughter's shoulder, too moved to speak. Marcus looked up at the stars, and Lily knew he was thinking about Sophie, about how proud she'd be, about how her story had found continuation in a girl she'd never met, but somehow saved anyway. You know what I think? Danny said, breaking the reverent silence. I think we should make this an annual thing, not just the festival, but a reunion. Everyone who's been part of the Guardian Angels program coming together to celebrate how far we've come. And to welcome new members, Sarah added. There will always be kids who need protection, the Zoes of the world who are just starting their journey. We'll be here, Marcus said, and it wasn't just a promise, it was a covenant, for every single one of them. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, each lost in their own thoughts but connected by shared purpose, until Lily remembered something. Marcus, can I ask you a question? Anything. That first day when you saw me being bullied, how did you know what to say? How did you know how to make me feel like I mattered? Marcus was quiet for a long moment, his eyes distant with memory. Because Sophie used to ask me the same thing. Every time someone hurt her, she'd ask, Daddy, why do I matter? And I'd tell her, you matter because you exist, because your heart beats and your mind thinks and your spirit shines, because the universe made you exactly as you are, and that is enough. He looked at Lily, his storm cloud eyes clear. When I saw you that day, saw your courage even in your fear, I heard Sophie asking that question again, and I knew I had to give you the answer I gave her. You matter, period. No qualifications, no conditions. You matter because you're here, because you're you, because your existence has value that no one else can define or diminish. Thank you, Lily whispered, for seeing me, for saving me, for teaching me to save myself. Thank you, Marcus replied, for giving Sophie's story a different ending, for proving that her pain, her struggle, her beautiful too short life, it all mattered. It all meant something. It all changed the world. 6 months later, on what would have been Sophie's 17th birthday, Lily published her first book. It was a collection of stories, some fiction, some memoir, all centered on a girl with magic wheels who traveled to impossible places and learned impossible things. The dedication read, For Sophie Reeves, who taught me that wheels can take you anywhere if you know how to dream. And for Marcus, Rita, Danny, Sarah, and all the Iron Guardians who proved that the best magic is human kindness. The book became required reading in their school district's anti-bullying curriculum. It won awards, it changed lives. But more importantly, it reached the kids who needed it most, the ones sitting alone, feeling invisible, convinced their differences made them less than. It reached them and whispered Sophie's message. You are magic. You've got this. You're not alone. Trevor, now a sophomore in high school and a peer mentor in the Guardian Angels program, bought 20 copies and distributed them to middle schools across the state. His college application essay would eventually be about how a girl in a purple wheelchair taught him what strength really meant. Crystal graduated with honors and began clerking for a federal judge who specialized in disability rights cases. She credited Lily's book with helping her find the language to articulate her own experiences. The Iron Guardians Guardian Angels program expanded to 17 states, protecting hundreds of vulnerable children and creating communities of protection everywhere they went. And Lily? Lily Martinez rolled through her life with purple wheels that caught the sun, wearing a leather vest that announced her belonging, writing stories that changed hearts, and teaching the world that disability doesn't diminish dignity. It reveals it, tests it, and ultimately, when met with courage and community, strengthens it. She never forgot the feeling of those motorcycles rumbling into the park 3 months into 7th grade, the day her life split into before and after. But now, the after was beautiful. The after was purpose. The after was exactly where Sophie's magic wheels had been leading all along. On the first anniversary of the Wheels of Change festival, Lily stood on the same stage and looked out at over 1,000 people. The event had grown beyond anything she'd imagined, drawing attendees from across the country, generating policy changes and inspiring similar festivals in dozens of cities. "A year ago," she began, "I told you about a girl named Sophie who believed wheels could be magic. Today, I want to tell you what she taught me about that magic." The crowd leaned in, hungry for her words. The magic isn't in the wheels themselves. It's in the journey they enable. It's in the people who build ramps instead of stairs, who see chairs and think different mobility instead of disability, who understand that we all move through the world in our own ways, and none of those ways are wrong. She gestured to the Iron Guardians standing in their usual protective formation, to the hundreds of Guardian Angels alumni scattered throughout the crowd, to the community that had transformed from bystanders into upstanders. The magic is in you. In every person who chooses kindness over cruelty, protection over indifference, inclusion over exclusion, in every bully who finds the courage to change, in every bystander who becomes a defender. In every person who looks at someone different and thinks, there is a human being whose story I don't yet know, but whose dignity I will always protect. The sun caught her purple wheels as she rolled to the edge of the stage, and for a moment she could swear she felt Sophie there, not as a ghost, but as a presence woven into the fabric of everything good that had grown from her father's grief and Lily's courage. "So keep being magic," Lily said, her voice carrying across the park, across the river, out into a world that still needed so much healing. "Keep protecting each other. Keep building communities where everyone belongs. Keep proving that our differences don't divide us. They make us beautiful." The standing ovation lasted 10 minutes, and as Marcus watched Lily shine in the spotlight, surrounded by community that loved and protected her, he felt something he hadn't felt since Sophie died. Peace. Not the peace of forgetting, but the peace of knowing that his daughter's spirit lived on, that her pain had been transformed into purpose, that her story continued in every child the guardian angels protected, in every bully who learned to change, in every community that chose inclusion over exclusion. Sophie's wheels had taken her exactly where she needed to go. And Lily's wheels, those beautiful purple spokes that had once marked her as different, had become exactly what Sophie promised they could be: magic. 5 years later, Lily Martinez stood in front of the United Nations, invited to speak about disability rights and youth activism. At 18, she had already published 3 books, established a nonprofit that provided free wheelchairs to children in developing countries, and inspired a generation of young advocates who refused to let disability define their limitations. Marcus Reeves sat in the audience, his Iron Guardian's vest worn proudly despite the formal setting. Beside him sat Rosa, Sarah, Rita, Danny, and 50 other Guardian Angels members who'd flown to New York to witness this moment. And in Lily's pocket, carefully preserved in its plastic sleeve, was Sophie's letter, carried with her everywhere, a reminder that magic wheels and Guardian Angels weren't fiction. They were real. They were here. They were changing the world, one protected child at a time. As Lily began her speech to world leaders and policymakers, she touched her wheelchair's purple spokes, a gesture that had become her signature, her prayer, her promise to a girl she'd never met but would never forget. "My name is Lily Martinez," she said, her voice carrying across the great hall. "And I'm here to tell you about a girl who taught me that wheels can take you anywhere, even to places she never got to go herself." The journey continued. The magic remained. And Sophie Reeves smiled from wherever spirits go when their stories become legends, knowing that her wheels, her magic, her hope, her love had carried not just her, but countless others to freedom. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.